Hey everybody, Shane from Shane's Books and Review. Today I wanted to talk about a book that I just finished. I've read it before, but I found I had a much better appreciation for it this time than last time. And that book was The Great Gatsby from F. Scott Fitzgerald. Come with me. What was it really that got me interested in The Great Gatsby after so many years? Well, simply enough, I just read a book that didn't really have any kind of substance to it in my mind. I thought it was kind of void and empty. There wasn't a whole lot of story to it, and anyway. Now, that was the whole thing that prompted me to get back to a classic, was that book. And I'm really glad that I made the decision I did, because the way that this book was wrote, The Great Gatsby, it was incredible. There was such beautiful language in it. There was such a different type of a pace to it. It's just stuff that you really don't see in books anymore. I mean, people don't take the time to describe literally or literarily how things were or how things are around them. And he absolutely did, which was actually a very great change of pace for me. The book is in the 1920s. It was 1922 in the summer. And Nick, as the story starts out, moved to New York area and was living in West Egg. There's two eggs. One is West Egg, one is East Egg. He has a mysterious neighbor. The book really just chronicles, I'm guessing, a few months worth of time, maybe just a few weeks worth of time if things were progressing as fast as they seem, of Nick's life, the way that it got entangled with Gatsby. I can't imagine how hard it would be to try to write a book to describe my era. I mean, things are kind of on the cusp of going one way or another with so much stuff these days, and let's just not get into that. But if I were to try to write it down in page, I would have so much of a hard time doing it. But Scott Fitzgerald, he did a wonderful job capturing the whole. Alcohol was illegal, parties were a big thing, social events were huge, especially amongst the elite. So early in life, Gatsby ends up running into Daisy, and they have a bit of a fling during the summer. 5 years later, here they are. As the story starts to unfold, Nick runs into his cousin and realizes that she lives across the bay from him now. And he ends up going to a couple of their little get-togethers and eventually gets invited over to his neighbor's house and finds out that he's this mysterious Gatsby that everybody's talking about. If you want to look at Gatsby for a second, there was a question about his wealth. Where did he come from? How did he get where he is? How does he maintain who he is? And a lot of that really wasn't addressed in the book. And I personally just don't think it was important for it to be addressed in the book. But I do like that the mystery was left open, because if everything was wrapped up in a nice, neat little bundle, I don't think the book would have been nearly as profound to me as it was whenever I went back through it this time. So kudos on Fitzgerald for that, for sure. You got the mystery of Gatsby, and who is he? Nobody really knows what he does, or what he does to work, or how he makes money, or anything. Daisy, she remembers him from the 5 years ago, but she's keeping tight-lipped about it. Now at this party at the Buchanan's, Nick runs into a professional golf player. They kind of hit it off, but he was cursed with something that he himself describes as being the only honest person that he is knowledgeable about. After the party, he finally does get an invite over to Gatsby's place, and I really did like the relationship that was forming in between Nick and Gatsby. I think that they could have been great friends, because they seemed to me to be yin to yang. They were equal and opposite in different ways. Where Nick was more grounded, Gatsby, on the other hand, he was so wrapped up in the dream of what he was trying to become so that he could win Daisy back, that he had forgotten who he was. So the whole point of all the parties, the alcohol, every bit of everything that Gatsby had done was, in fact, only to meet Daisy. And because of him being so stuck in that, he forgot one crucial lesson about life. It's okay to remember the past and to learn from it, but it's not okay to live in the past, because if you expect any instant now to be the same as 5 years ago, you're going to be a sorely disappointed individual. Later on, after Gatsby and Daisy had met up, and it was a good hot day, and they decided to go to the city, between the alcohol and the heat and just everybody having a miserable time, everybody starts giving each other checks. Tom puts it to Gatsby saying, hey, you know what? I'm about tired of this. You're always going on about oh chap this and oh chap that. And what is it with this Oxford business anyway? Gatsby gives the explanation. Was it a true explanation? Possibly. But that's the thing about him is so much mystery. Maybe it was that it was armistice from the military that let him get into that. Or perhaps he was never there at all. Perhaps he just ended up getting a picture over there, and that was all it was. Gatsby goes and turns it around on Tom, too. And he says, you want to know what's really funny about all this? Your wife, she's never loved you. She's only loved me. Whenever Gatsby and Daisy were first talking in the storyline, it almost seemed like Gatsby was more in love with her mansion than her, but now he's got his own mansion, so that really didn't matter so much. But if you take a look at everything, it's amazing how much yellow he has infused in everything. Well, her name is Daisy. Daisies are yellow, so that kind of makes a bit of sense, yes? But also that yellow thing has a lot to do with an overtone, I think, that Fitzgerald was trying to set in the book of wealth. Gatsby had put things to Tom, she's only loved me, and all she has to do is say it, and everything's going to be grand. For me, haha, you sucked. But it didn't work out that way. He orders everybody home. Daisy is drunk and drives, hits somebody and kills them, and lets Gatsby take the fall for it. Now, before you go getting really upset at Daisy, you've got to remember something about that time period. And anybody really that was driving drunk in that time period. Driving drunk really didn't become a big thing until the 80s. I still remember people being so inebriated that whenever they got out of their cars, they would fall out, because it wasn't something that was enforced. It was something that was thought of if you drive and you're a little bit buzzed, as long as you're being responsible, okay, we're not really going to ticket you. But if you do something stupid, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. At least that's how it was here. Am I saying it's right or wrong? I am not saying either. It's just the way it was. And in the 20s, it was much the same that way. But she killed somebody and let him take the fall. Gatsby has a problem with that white horse syndrome. And it's like, well, you know what? To keep you out of trouble, I love you so much, I'm going to sacrifice myself. Because of those things in that time period, that was not outside the norm. For instance, if you were drafted into the military or received a letter saying that you had to do military service, you could pay somebody else to take your place. Completely legal at that time period. That's the problem with it, is it was the moralities and the loose moralities of the 20s that I think was the real focus of this book. Now Shane gets to his point. So you have all this nice gilded, beautiful parties and mansions and places that they go to and experience, but the thing that Nick finds out and experiences and actually has a moment of self-issue with is, with however many of these places you go to, friend A at one place can be friend A at another place, so they're interchangeable. Doesn't matter if they're there at every place, because there's always somebody that's the same person other places. It's all just a facade, it's all just a fake, it's all just a show, and nobody's really being their real selves. It feels like camaraderie at first, it feels like you've got a bunch of friends, but miss out one time. And Nick found that out for himself before missing out, and realized that, you know what, this really isn't the thing. This isn't where it's at. And it kind of disgusted him a little bit. And that was more towards the end of the book. Now for the greatness of Gatsby. The greatness of Gatsby was that, one, in the book, I don't recall him having alcohol whatsoever. And also, I don't recall him doing any of the superciliousness that everybody else was involved in. So to be portrayed as the man of leisure, the Hugh Hefner as it were, and to not be participating in those types of things, to have the hospitality and the generosity to allow all these people to come to his place and to provide for them enormous amounts of alcohol and food and entertainment for no other reason than just to get that one person's attention. Sure, it was incredibly selfish in some ways, but it was also very giving in others, because a lot of people had experiences they would have never had otherwise. So the greatness of Gatsby is in his mystery, those questions that never really got answered, because the way the book closes is he hadn't been in his pool at all that whole summer. And whenever he finally does get into the pool, the mechanic whose wife was killed by Daisy shows up and kills him. And Gatsby, whenever he's buried, is buried alone. Nick was the only one there. quite really, out of the whole group of friends, that was it. I can see how a lot of people would think that's the reason why this is an incredibly sad book. I think Gat's been alright with it because he knew that those guys and gals, they weren't really his friends anyway, and there was only one person there he was interested with to begin with, and she made her choice, and he had already made his. Otherwise, things wouldn't have played out the way that they did. That was really the thing that got Nick, because he did realize that. He saw how things were absolutely empty around him. But at the end of it, I don't really recall if he ended up breaking things off with the professional golf player completely or not. I know that's the way it was headed, because they got to the point where they couldn't even stand talking to each other on the phone, but he sells everything off and moves back to the Midwest. You know what? You guys really ought to see the sun. Here, I'm probably going to blind everybody when I do this, but check that thing out. Look at that. Of course, I'm going to have to edit this so you can see that, but that thing is just amazing right now, huh? Well, this has been Shane with Shane's Books and Review. I hope that you did enjoy the review. I hope that you enjoy this book. I encourage every one of you to read it. If you do enjoy it and you do read it, make sure you do let me know about it. And if you find a good book in between now and my next video, make sure you let me know about it, because if you do, I'll read it along with you. That being said, you know what to do. Gently massage that subscribe button, click the like and share, because sharing, after all, is caring. And you guys have a great day.